Who are you?
Jenni White.
Who are you?
In celebration of everyday, honest to goodness, small town mom and pop, Christian conservative, little guy Americans who beat the election rigging, satanic pedophile cult, liberal Democrats. I dressed up in a Trump suit today to honor the little guy.
Well, for a man, you look beautiful. I'm serious. I think you ought to dress up like that every day.
I could. I got the wardrobe for it.
I'm telling you, you look natty. That's an old word, N-A-T-T-Y, that they used to use in the 20s for men who were all dressed up. You were natty.
There you go.
I know. So I'm going to bring Amber on if you don't mind.
Let's bring her in. Let's get going. I know you got to go early, so let's.
I know. So I got to go early. I got to drive all the way to Bixby to talk to my homeschoolers. So I'm going to have to leave early. Good morning, Amber Evans.
Good morning.
You sound like there's a little something on your
audio's a little
audio.
Again.
But you look beautiful.
Well, gracias.
And isn't that the only thing that really matters? So before we get off of here, before we bring Robert in, since I got to run, was this or was this not a repudiation of authoritarianism?
100%.
I mean.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me okay now?
Are we back?
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you, Amber. I don't know if Jenni's frozen or if I am or if you are. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Michael. Jenni, where'd you go?
Yeah, I think Jenni's frozen. They don't want to hear from Jenni.
Not really, I guess. Joke's on us.
Yeah.
She actually was leaving earlier than we thought.
Yeah, maybe she is leaving early. That's right. Well, let's go ahead and bring Robert in here and let's talk to him about all things in his race. Mr. Keys.
Good morning, everybody. It's a great day.
Sir.
It's a great day to have a red country again.
Yes, sir. And I think Jenni's kind of popping in and out of here. I don't know.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, I don't know if she just needs to remove her. There she is. Are you back? Are you back, Jenni?
Who knows? I may be gone again in just a little bit. So who knows? Okay. It looks like maybe we're coming back online. We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, good morning, Robert. I know that I've got to leave early and I'm so sorry to miss you, but thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
Can you give us a little bit of your background?
I'm a water well guy here in Oklahoma. I own a series of environmental engineering and drilling and construction companies in Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and Norman. I do serve at the Water Resources Board and the Corporation Commission, both in those areas of interest. I'm a member of the board of directors for the largest groundwater organization in the world, out of Westerville, Ohio. And I mean, we've got membership in 80 foreign countries. And so if you're worried about clean water and drinking water, I'm your man. Okay. And so they're heavily involved in that, in just almost every aspect. So.
Wow, we may have to bring you in another time to talk about PFAs.
Well, it's pretty funny. I was actually in 2018 at a legislative fly-in in DC, going to members of Congress, explaining to them that fracking was an old word. The new word was going to be forever chemicals, and they were all, dropping their jaws, going, "Well, we've never heard of that," even though it'd been around for 60 years, and people have been trying to make notice of it, but usually that's Congress is allowed to know the real big problems when they get pushed in the right way.
Yeah. Well, we'll probably see you again then.
I'll bet you we can make that happen.
Yes.
In another aspect. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and bow out so you guys can get going. But Amber, if you want to kind of start and talk about how you know Robert, and I'll be listening in while I'm driving, so that'll be exciting because I would love to hear all about Robert's story. So you guys, good to see everybody. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. Got a nice audience this morning. So, and you'll want to know what's going on. So keep up, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah, drive careful.
Bye, Jenni.
All right.
Well, I met Robert for the first time on the day of the recount in Cleveland County at the courthouse. Never talked to him ever before, and I actually found him very endearing. And so I sat in that entire day and missed about 4 minutes of the entire recount, and was there to assist if they needed another watcher. And kind of that's where it rolled. And it was interesting because of I was watching the election board secretary, the county election board secretary, kind of scramble around and start reopening the already opened and resealed and counted ballots, and it looked like something was missing, and lo and behold, there was something missing in the end.
Well, we're just to clarify, Amber, Robert, why don't you tell us what you were running for, what seat, what district, and you're talking about the recount, Amber, of Robert's race?
Yes.
Well, I was running for Senate District 15 here in Norman. Last Republican hold district in the Norman area, we made a big run at it. So.
And that was against who were you running against in the primary? Lisa Standridge?
Well, in the primary, there were 6 or 7 people, and we ended up in a runoff, which was Lisa Standridge and myself. Her husband is the standing senator, and she was running in his place.
Yeah. So what actually transpired so I'm assuming this was all during the runoff itself. Yes. And yes. So tell us just what happened, what transpired.
Well, apparently it happened. Everything also happened in the original primary. We just weren't aware of it. And so when the count came in, there was a total count of 5,004 votes that were recorded in election night, and I lost by 51 votes. And didn't like it, but I took it as that's the way it is. And newspaper, different people called me, wanted to know if I was going to challenge it with it being that close, and I said no, I'm not. And until 2 days later, Thursday morning, I got a phone call from our county precinct chair that discovered some anomalies and sent them to me. And those anomalies had to do with absentee ballots in nursing homes and incapacitated. And so it started moving forward, I had no idea about a petition for abnormalities. Everybody always talks about a recount, and so as we went through the abnormalities, and they sent me the documents and the information out of the election data warehouse. There became several. I mean, one, for instance, still has not been answered, is why was there 555 of 5,055 people who actually voted, but only 5,004 recorded as voting. There was an exact 51 vote difference. The exact number I lost by was a trigger point. Then there were absentee ballots that the documents came back undeliverable, address unknown, no forwarding address. 9 of those that came back, people actually voted absentee. And so that happened. And we had a document that people had sent us, and we had seen on the doors out campaigning, where the Lisa Standridge's campaign had sent out saying that they would come out and notarize your ballots. And so I had no idea at that time that was against the law. But that morning, all of this comes about Thursday morning. And so I filed what was called an application for irregularities. And from my understanding, there's not been very many of those that actually got accepted. And so when I filed that, I asked the election board, I said, I don't really want a recount because nobody ever wins a recount.
Yeah.
Why do a recount? I said, I want this petition. And so actually the attorney was going to give me the document for the recount back, and the election board secretary at state level said, no, we'll take them both. So I spend the rest of the day waiting for them, thinking I'm going to get both, because I don't want to trigger one without the other. Well, when I go back to the election board at just before 5 o'clock, they denied the application.
What was that? The count was your county election board or the state?
No, I had to go to the state.
Okay.
Originally I went to the county, and they told me I had to pay a $250 cashier's check fee. While I was at the bank getting that, the county calls and said, oh, we made a mistake. You have to go to the state. And the county, nobody had ever done anything for the petition for irregularities. And it just, as every door opened, as we got into this, there was just more and more problems that happened. Well, when they denied that on Thursday, and then gave me what I felt like to be misleading information, I was not happy. And I called my attorney. That was a moment I called legal, and I shared with them that was going on. And so they brought a small group in that night, and discovered a bunch of things that are not compatible with the state election board's policies and the legislature's Title 26 laws. A can begin to open up. Now, I hired my law firm is a national firm, and so I sometimes I don't know if you know Stan Ward. Is a great friend of mine. He's an attorney.
Yeah.
And the difference between a good lawyer and a great lawyer is what happened. We feel like at the courthouse. A good lawyer knows the law. He's got it all figured out. He's got all the briefs. He's got it all right. But a great lawyer knows the judge. And so, unfortunately, they must have had a great lawyer, and that altered some of the outcome that led this down to how Amber and I became acquainted. It's funny because I met her that day. We've not talked until this event right here. And it's pretty neat that she was part of that event for me. And so when we were declined the petition, the next day, my law firm rewrote the petition and informed the state that, number one, due to Title 26 in state law, you don't have the authority to deny this. You're saying you got to have just cause. Here's your policy to do it. Any candidate in the state of Oklahoma who wants to have a petition for irregularities can call for that. And it doesn't necessarily have to have a recount. A recount is just an exercise of the same math of what they did the first time. Now, in mine, as Amber will tell you, they did find some problems and found ballots that had absent ballots that were missing. There were things that went wrong, but not anything enough to alter the outcome of the election. During the process, it was discovered that there were multiple violations in the notary. And then if you go to the state election board's own website and see what they call ballot harvesting, we discovered that. And in that, and it was with a nursing home incapacitated to the tune of 15 ballots. Now, when we got to court on that day, there was only 41 irregularities, and we were believing that we needed to have 51. It turned out that there were some other ballots that were counted, and so we needed to have 55. So we were 10, 15 away. And at the end of the day, we didn't get enough votes to change it. Through my legal team, we made an agreement with the Standridge, with the judge, with the assistant district attorney, with the county election board, the state election board. Amber was there for that. Now I want to back up and explain something to everybody. There's a huge black hole that we have that's going on purposely to be able to hide and filter this. Now, I've not done a big push trying to move this into the public eye. You've not seen me with the microphone trying to attack anybody on this. We waited until after the election to really juice this up, because first thing, when you go into the same courthouse, as Amber will tell you, we were in the same courthouse where small claims court, people go to prison, juries sit. When you go in there for any of those type of events, whether it's a divorce or what, you get a case number. But when it's an election crime, you don't get a case number, you get a cause. And therefore you can't look it up on OSCN, on it's nowhere public. It's held privately within the election board. And so in order for the media to even know about it, somebody has to leak it somehow. We kept under the radar. We just didn't want this to be an attack on the party or mess everything up any worse than we already have. And so the other thing that happens is when you go into these type of events, you don't necessarily have a court reporter in the room. And so our attorney requested, and we paid to have one there to record it. Well, come find out, they didn't start recording until we began the negotiations after the recount. So everything in court was, and that goes away. You can't find that. But the judge did order a request that they began recording it. So at the time, this is what we agreed to. Okay, we don't have enough votes to flip the election. So, but we have discovered and presented to the court that there were crimes and there were things done wrong. And in exchange for my saying, you can certify the election and get your ballots printed next week, I'll do that. In exchange, we want three things. We want, one, that the judge rule on these three things. And one was the conclusion publicly of the recount. Then two was the anomaly at the election data warehouse that they that he rule, and that somebody has to answer where all of the problems, how are they resolving that through the election down at Warehouse? You know, we have Cindy Bird, a great lady. I love her, and the fact that she likes to make numbers account. They got to work out right. But we're not even making our numbers at the election down at Warehouse coincide. And so still to this day, all of the anomalies after we finished, Amber can tell you they discovered that there were 290 irregularities across the board that we didn't even present in the courtroom. This is a lady out of Comanche County, was registered as a Democrat in Comanche County and in Cleveland County, received an absentee ballot after the time that was allowed to receive it, and still voted as a Democrat in a Republican primary runoff. That vote counted, and they didn't pull it. And so the third thing was, and this is, you know, we're not trying to push anybody to prison, okay? But the law states if you are involved in ballot harvesting by being registered on the committee of a campaign, you are not allowed to notarize or witness at no time anybody's ballot. And we have an individual that did that is registered on the Standridge campaign. And there's a history of this happening, and the election board has the responsibility to be filtering those coming in. When you look at how they're supposed to be categorized and who all notarizes, they're supposed to have a full list of that. This is easy peasy stuff. But when the election board tells you to your face that they do not believe that somebody's intention of voting should be negated by somebody's bad actions on notarizing that ballot, you're like, okay, well, you're saying you're just jumped into the same category that the three state justices that you tried to overturn, because they voted in 2020 to do away with notarizing ballots. Either if the law says they have to be notarized, and they have to be notarized a certain way, then a state agency's responsibility is to certify that it has been done, and if they haven't, to remove them. And we have a state agency that is playing judge, jury, and executioner, and they're not following the law. Well, you know, the object of the law right now in the Oklahoma State election laws are not bad laws. We have good, solid laws. We have people in office that are not following the law, and that's a huge problem. And so, how all this is going to shake out, I don't really have a clue. My hope is end of the line is that we get an election board secretary training the county level. This is where the next gap is the state level is training the county level with what they want, not with Title 26. I have an individual I know quite well as election board secretary. I won't throw him under the bus on this deal here, but when I sit down with them and they explain to me where their training is and how it comes, nobody trains him out of Title 26. I had to send this individual Title 26 and highlight exactly where there's responsibilities that happen in that office that the state is not training and expecting the county level to do. And there's a huge gap. And my heart goes out to those county election officials who end up getting beat up because they're following the policies that the state regulators telling them to do. And it's the state office where the failure is. By and large, I don't think it's the county people. I think the county people are being fed the wrong garbage.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to kind of with Amber drill down into that 51 vote discrepancy, and then also kind of maybe have both of you guys expand on those additional anomalies. Are all those things, Amber, is that coming strictly from the precinct level, like differences as to what's going in the county, or is it all between the county and the state data warehouse?
Well, I need to take a closer look at that and really see that information. I'm trying to figure out how the heck there are absentees being sent into a different county and that person voting. So there's something in their Mesa system, whatever they're using to send information out, that is, whether something's intentional been done or unintentional, there is a problem. And I honestly, I can't even answer that right now. I'm trying to figure out the 51 vote discrepancy. Can you explain that again to me, Robert? Because I want to make sure I understood that clearly.
Well, still today, they gave a number of how many people actually voted. And so the number on that day was 5,004. Okay.
At the county, that's coming out of the county saying that, or the
state? On the state's website. Okay. It showed, and if you go back right now, go to the state's website, Oklahoma elections, it has it down that there was a 50, the total number, and I lost by 51 votes. But then in the election data warehouse, in that group of numbers, there were 51 more people who voted in that runoff than what are recorded, and it just happens to be the exact number I lost by.
Wow.
Now that doesn't mean that any of them voted for me. Those 51 people could have voted all for her. We have no idea. The fact is they're missing, and that number is the exact number I lost by, and they refuse to give an accountability of where they went, where'd those ballots go.
And do we know? Sorry, Amber. Do we know on those 51, are those specifically all absentee, or are they just regular ballots also? Or maybe you don't even know, you just know they're ballots?
We do know. I'd have to go back and look. That's a very good question of which ones they are. That's a very good question. We do have that information at this point, I'm sure.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Amber. I think I interrupted you.
Oh, no, you asked the question that I was curious about. How many out of Lisa Standridge's camp are you guys tracking that they notarized that was not lawful?
15. There were a total of 15 ballots. And if you go to the state's website on ballot harvesting, if you do less than 10, it's a misdemeanor with I'm trying to remember here, a $5,000 fine and 1 year in jail. If you do more than 10, it's a $50,000 fine and 5 years in jail. And the individual did 15.
All right. Well, I have that statute 26-14-108 up right here, and I guess it's section B of that, where it says the ballot shall not be notarized by any person whose name appears on the ballot as a candidate, or by any campaign chairperson or campaign treasurer for a candidate whose name appears on the ballot. So just to clarify, in that race, there were notes left at people's doors that said that the campaign could notarize the ballot if they needed to.
That's correct.
Did they have a name?
It gave the campaign treasurer's name and phone number.
Oh, so it had the actual. So I have the treasurer up here. So it's Kay Osborne is probably, I guess, who we're talking, because there's only two registered users on that account. I mean, on her committee there. So she's the treasurer, and then Lisa's the chairperson.
You bet.
So they had a piece of paper that said that Kay could notarize a ballot if they needed to.
Yep, that's
wow.
If you go to OSCN right now on the Supreme Court, you'll see actual copies of the notarized ballots that has the notarized, the ones that we're referring to.
I can probably do that while we're talking here.
Yeah.
It's super frustrating because I think it was Nathan Dahm that had introduced legislation a couple of years ago about having the books for the notary stamps, opened up and have accountability, and there is none. And I was super frustrated with that in particular because in 2022 we were tracking at that point at minimum Cleveland County had been opening absentee ballots, and they went ahead and let absentee affidavits slide through that didn't have a notary stamp, and they only had a signature and a notary number on it, which it's not a valid notary unless you have a stamp on it as well, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so
the dates have to match.
Well, exactly. That's right. Yeah, and they were removing the notaries from the ballot, like all the papers separating so quickly that there was no way you could even account for anything. And once you separate the ballot, right, from the from that envelope that has the notary on it, we're in trouble.
Yeah, who voted for who? You bet.
Right, and there does have to be accountability. And that law, that was what I was kind of yelling about over the last few years. About ballot harvesting is a misdemeanor if it's 9 or fewer, and I think that's unacceptable. Why are you carrying anybody else's ballot other than maybe your spouse? The end. I mean, I don't carry. Yeah, I'm not going to go carry and take my daughter's ballot in. I want her to take that in herself. And I certainly am not going to take anybody else in unless they have some egregious issue, that they can't do in themselves.
There's so many problems with that ballot harvesting on that. And then there's also the problem with understanding the law. And so, I know I'm not the best person to understand the law. And so I made sure that everything we did, I had a legal team helping me along the way, and the Standridge he is a lawyer, and so apparently I promise you, if you go look over the past 12 years, they've been doing this very same thing. This didn't just happen. Okay, they didn't just think this up this election, and so understanding the law, especially if you're going to be a legislator, if you're going to go make law, you should understand the law. But regardless, the end result is the individual who is enforcing the law and creating policy to enforce it needs to enforce the full law and not have the autonomy to filter who gets punished and who doesn't. That should not go with the state regulatory agency.
Well, for lack of a better word, I think it's almost like an epidemic in this state because we continually see the laws being circumvented, whether it be administrative rules and things that are made up and that violate the law, and there is no accountability. And part of the problem there is that there are no what ifs in the event of, if you do X, Y, Z, what's going to happen to you? Well, they set the bar so high that under 10, that's okay. We'll just give you a little slap on the wrist, right? No, if you do it, you need to suffer consequences. It's just like when you, I'm not a fan of corporal punishment, but when they took away what they deem as corporal punishment out of like schools and stuff and making the kids pick up garbage that got in trouble and started just sending them to another classroom to miss all their assignments, right?
Yeah.
When you take the accountability away from them and make them learn from it, then you see what's happening here. We have our legislators, some of them are running rampant. And as we saw with the pro tem seat, and the question is why are these people going into office if they're not going to be following the letter of the law, and they're going to want to do the cheating? And, like, I play tag or I play a game, but I'm going to find a little way to cheat over here, so I can get ahead. Well, it's the same type of idea. Well, I don't want somebody that doesn't have integrity in those seats.
I'm going to tell you where we've got to fix this right now. In last night's election with our president, getting him rightfully back in that seat, if we don't fix that, we're facing some of what's going on in these blue states. Because at the end of the day, when it's a close race, and in my race, the decision was made not by the vote of the people in the legal system, it was made by the power brokers of Oklahoma and the bureaucrat. They made that decision. And as I've had the fortunate experience since this loss to spend time and meet members of the Trump family, okay? And as I listen to them, I've listened to Elena Haba, his attorney, tell me and others in these small groups what he went through and what he was facing in each state. My jaw dropped. My wife and I look at each other and we're going, wow, we're experiencing the same thing on a red on red campaign. What do you think's going on right now in these blue on red states? Okay. And when you look at what happened in Oklahoma County last night in the national election of how many people in Oklahoma County voted for Harris, we better fix this right now, because we're going to have it. We're going to have it, and we're going to lose our state if we don't jump up and fix it now.
Well, and I will tell you, again, I give you a foundation of where I'm seeing it. I grew up in the state of Oregon, but we were so very blue state, but it's not as blue as people think. And the foundation of where I came from, it was a lot more conservative back in the day.
Whereabouts in Oregon were you? Eastern side?
No, I was right in the heart of Willamette Valley, all the way from Portland down to Eugene.
Okay, yeah.
So I've lived in all those cities.
You bet.
Yeah, and I've been saying around here to people, like, listen, what is happening to Oklahoma that people aren't seeing happen to Oregon 30 years ago? Except for Oklahoma is on a fast track. And kind of from my viewpoint, one section is, even though I understand what government is trying to do. We need industry, we need certain things to bring people to Oklahoma. That's how you keep the taxes low, right? You bring more people in to help share in the cost of that. But the problem is the education in Oklahoma, even at the universities, isn't above standard to the point where you're going to get Oklahomans, people that are educated in Oklahoma, to stay in Oklahoma. Instead, what's happening, you bring in Amazon and other industry, and you're not having enough people going into certain fields that would want to stay here, and they're importing people from California and Oregon and Washington State. And with that, to fulfill these high, paying jobs, it's happening here in Comanche County. And when you do that, you are bringing the ideology with you, with the vast majority. Now, if it's people like my husband and I, who was in the Army for 22 years, we landed here because of a job, but we had conservative principles, and we chose to come here, not because we were trying to get ahead for some political position, or to make the big money. We came because we were trying to gain traction and find our path forward after being, should I say, indoctrinated with the government for so long.
At some point, I would love to have that discussion publicly in a format like this, because the fact is, when we recruit big companies like that to come to Oklahoma, we're exploiting our workforce. But when we build Oklahoma from the inside out, you take my business. Where do you think my profits are going? Here in Oklahoma. Harold Hamm, where's his profits? In Oklahoma. But when Panasonic, Amazon come, where do their profits go? they leave the state. And
That's right.
you know, if you want to make Oklahoma strong, build from the inside and build it strong. And I'm going to be buried in this state. Okay, that's that's how committed we are to Oklahoma. But Panasonic and Amazon, they're only committed as long as it's profitable, and their profits.
Well, you know, we have to go and look at, you know, who's lobbying who with all these legislators. You know, what is really the end goal of these certain people that sometimes don't make sense why they're on a ballot. And then you see some shady things going on, right? And so the question is, these 51 votes, right? Like ballots, like where they go. We have 15 that are questionable. And I know I want to go back. Sometimes in the election data warehouse, I will see there are more people that have credit for voting than actually got a vote tallied. And when that happens, oftentimes it's it was an absentee. They didn't notarize their ballot. They did something inaccurate on it. But to have 51 are they just poof, vanished in the air, like they're not accounted for at all?
That's correct. And we've asked for we've asked for clarification and giving an explanation of where those ballots went. You know, there were multiple different issues. There were I think 9 ballots that, as I believe I said earlier, there were 9 ballots where our campaign, in an effort to try to clean up the voting records, okay, whenever we did a mailer and we received that mailer back that said, you know, return address, anything where it came back, we turned it over to the county election precinct chair, okay, and she worked at purging the records. These people moved, and so that was what she was doing. Well, then there's a group of these that actually came back from the Postal Service that said no forwarding address. That type of statement went on. Nobody knows where they're at. But then those ballots, those people actually voted absentee in the election. And so,
wow,
let's find out who they are or why they voted in the election and how they got their absentee ballot, because by law they can't forward that ballot to somebody else, you know. Or did it come to that house? Did somebody fill that ballot out and send it off for them? How did it get filled out?
So you had there was what you said, 25 of these undeliverable ballots that actually got cast?
Yes, there were. I don't know the exact number, but I think it was 9 or 10 of those that came back.
Wow.
And the undeliverable, but yet voted on the absentee ballot. And the election board is not any of those things. When you pull up the documents of OSCN, you'll see the 9 or 10 ballots that we're asking about. Now,
so I have it here with the margin between the opponent was 51 votes. You know, 2451 for you. The petitioner 2502. The key issue in the race was ballot harvesting. Kay Osborne. So it says ballot harvesting by Standridge's campaign treasurer, Kay Osborne, who notarized at least 10 absentee ballots and witnessed 5 voter affidavits, which we already looked at Title 26. She's not allowed to do any of that. Yeah. And then that comes with absentee ballot harvesting involving 10 or more absentee ballots is a felony, punishable by 5 years in prison, a $50,000 fine, or both.
Yeah, and even there, nobody even knows how they're gonna, if they apply this law, are they going to do it like they do the Game File Commission? The Game File Commission, when the judge ruled against a couple here a year ago in Norman, they got they ended up, I think it was 10 years in prison for every chicken they had. So they got like a 500-year sentence in prison, and then multiplied that times the 50 something whatever times the penalty. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, we have no idea where this is going to land on that, but we do need to be making sure we follow the law. If we don't like the law, you change the law. I think that's a fair law. I don't have a problem with it. I think that's the only way we're going to protect our integrity. The legislators who wrote that, I think that was an inspired law. That's one with some meat that needs to be applied to make sure we protect Oklahoma. I'm not into election being stolen and turning blue, but that's what we're up against if we don't fix that right now.
Yeah, well, and besides that, and Amber, you can chime in here too. And I don't know how deep you've gone into his data yet, Amber, but so we know for sure the Supreme Court case, which I still want to talk about. I want to go back here in a minute and really talk about how on that initial complaint when it went into the first court where it was completely not recorded, no one knew about it, it's not public. I mean, that's an issue to me. But Robert, on the other side, so you've got the Supreme Court case with the 51 ballots, but you said there was 260 anomalies.
290.
Oh, 290.
Yeah.
What did those anomalies, what does that consist of? And maybe Amber, maybe you know what some of those, I mean, you're kind of an anomaly expert.
Yeah, I tell you, there was just so many anomalies of things that were missing on ballots that in the election data warehouse that are required to be in that information to count those documents that were missing. And it was endless of what was going on. But I want to back up a little bit and cover another subject that I think is huge, that we've got to get out to candidates who are running, okay, is that the way the election board has purposely set this up is to, one, to make sure that you don't get a petition for irregularities, okay? And then they have created such a narrow window of time. When we finally got the petition, it was moments before 5 o'clock on Friday, okay? And then we were not allowed to look at anything available on the petitions, and we were only allowed to look at what we said we found. The election board secretary of state told me personally that they don't believe that we should be allowed a fishing expedition. When you want to go look at all the other ballots, and say, well, is there anybody in their family? Because the law says that up to 3 times generation, you can't notarize. So we weren't even allowed because we didn't give the information up front that we discovered, which was their job to discover, not our job. We had to discover it up front, and we had to discover it in this little tiny window. From the moment they gave us ability to look at anything, it was less than 48 hours. We had to be in court. Okay.
Wow.
Now, this is the only reason this is in the Supreme Court is because I got enough money to do it. Okay. I'm over $50,000 right now just to get the information of what we got, because they narrowed this window. They put us in a pigeonhole to make sure we couldn't get enough information to change anything. And that has to stop. That has to stop.
There's a couple things I'd like to mention. First, I want to mention the fishing expedition. And the problem that is frustrating to me is that statement being made to you. I'm just going to say it, total BS. Because I'm thinking of a lawsuit that I was involved with, a federal case that we filed. And we put all the evidence forward for some tort claim notice before we filed the official lawsuit against the school district. And we had, in that time frame, we had 2 years before it went to court. But we had after the initial complaint, we still had 2 years to hire private investigators, do the research, and bring more evidence to the case that would be presented. And the statement about a fishing expedition, he doesn't think the candidate should have that ability, I think is ludicrous, because oftentimes people have no idea what they're looking at. They know something's wrong. They've gotten, recently between Richard's Tortorello's, he pushed back and had a recount. And thankfully, that because there was some learning from that, I think that helped in assisting in your case in particular. Some information.
Absolutely. That's the only reason most candidates, if you go into recent political history, who has a memory of a candidate getting a petition for irregularities? Richard's group told me, hey, don't just ask for a recount, get a petition. The recount is just recertifying the math the way they did it before. It's a dog and pony show. It's a dog and pony show to let the voting public think, oh, wow, it was a fair election. They're using the same math that they did to begin with. It's not changing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Now, I want to bring up something that I noticed in August in the sheriff's runoff in Kankakee County, and I haven't looked at your data in depth and gone through the days. I can gather all of it and from an individual and go look through it. But what happened here is that I noticed when I was looking in the election data warehouse on the voter registration file, which is where you and I and all of us sit with our information. And then there's another file called the deleted voter file. And I was trying to figure out, I can't remember exactly what it was, but trying to figure out something down here in a runoff. And I was like, what in the world is going on? So I had a few people that I noticed had actually 2 voter registrations, same name, same date of birth, with or without a voter registration date, which could be part of your anomalies in your case. But then same address. And what I saw was that not only on the deleted file did they have a credit for voting in the August 27th election, but they also had voter credit for voting on their normal active voter file. So in essence, one person, duplicate registrations, they were initially on the active one, they deleted one of them, but yet both are sitting with voter credit as if one person got credit for voting twice. And I wonder if any of that happened in yours, and if we could account for any of those 51 that way.
Well, it did. I mean, if there's a consistency of it's happened in other races,
Yeah, and I actually testified I was a witness for the district attorney here about some anomalies in the election data warehouse. There was over 600 Republicans that quote unquote voted in the runoff, but they didn't have voter credit yet. And in fact, it didn't hit until 24 days later. Now, the problem is it's so good that we're talking about the election data warehouse. That's my wheelhouse of understanding. That has got to be something that is put into law and codified that can be utilized as anomalies arise
because that's where we're finding the problems and they can't explain it. And Robert, I don't know if you remember me saying this, but I found the only one that we're tracking, I found during February of 2022, right, Michael?
Yep.
Yep. I found what I call a time traveling voter in Cleveland County.
I remember you telling me about this. I do.
That's right. Yes. And before that election was certified in February, one individual had voter credit for a future election in April.
Yeah.
And that I found that in the election data warehouse. Only one that I'm tracking has been found in the country, found on voter rolls, because of who I've been connected with the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's critical out of all of this that we learn, no matter what the Supreme Court rules, that we help push this forward and get something changed, because more and more is being seen and popping up.
Well, and I want to ask Robert on that fishing side, was was that just a procedure from the Secretary of the election, or was that actual law in some one way or another?
That's policy. That's policy adopted by the state election board, and has not been promulgated into law. It's just policy.
Okay.
Is it policy just for the state election board, or is it in administrative rules, which is also policy?
No, as it goes to administrative rules, you get a 1 year lag, I believe, on that, and then it has to be promulgated, and it's never been promulgated. It is not law. It is internal. What they're doing there, there's nothing that marries that to the legislature approving.
The more I learn, I'll say it. There has to be there needs to be an investigation from somebody outside of the state and county election boards. That we have got to get to the bottom of what's going on, because we have an unelected official, somebody that's only appointed, that is really. Does he have more power than the governor at this point? Is my question.
Well, in this subject, unfortunately, he does. Okay, it not by law, but by the way it's working. Okay, and that's why I felt so important. I could have came and hired a local attorney, somebody that knew the judge. Okay, I could have done that, but I hired a national firm to try to get this cleaned up. If I just hired a local attorney that had the ear of the judge, then we don't fix a problem. And when we run around just trying to fix a problem by well, I'm buddies with the judge. I'm buddies with one of the judges, actually the senior judge over there. But that is not the way to fix these problems. And we have too much of that going on with people who are in those little circles that can have that influence. The legislature wrote the law, the governor agreed with the law, and we have a state agency that is not enforcing or abiding by the law. That, I mean, come on. When we have that go on outside of elections, and we send the OSBI or auditors in, somebody goes to jail for that kind of stuff. But we're filtering, and we created this little hidden box, a window that nobody can find out what's really going on at the election board, and that's where it should be the most transparent.
Well, it should.
Yeah,
it should. And I think what has transpired before your race, that the that individual, called. Sorry about I'm having issues with my microphone. They called the 3-letter agencies on an individual or individuals. One we know for sure.
Another, I highly suspect. And on freedom of speech, whether you like it or not. And that's problematic. It's the same person that, we're discussing, that we need to have an investigation of what's going on in the internal workings.
You bet.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to have Robert just clarify that timeline again. So the election's over, and what you have 3 days to file your petition of irregularities. But then once you file that, what was the time frame of you filing that to where you had to actually present your specific things that you think were wrong? And then does that go right into that court that
it immediately literally goes, okay, the way it currently does is that you have to give just cause to the state, even though state law does not say that. The state law says a candidate has the right to request a petition for irregularities, but the state has some rules that they have, I say that the election board has put some policies together that they believe you've got to prove just cause, and you've got to give exactly. They will not let you open up and see a list of all the certifications, all of the absentee ballots. I'm going to tell you, I have a recording that on September 19th, I was at a meeting in Tulsa. Could not be at this public meeting where Bryant Rains, the county election board secretary, was speaking. And he was asked by the very same person who is under question as a member of the committee for Lisa Standridge. It's an audio recording of this individual saying, we were out, I was out notarizing, okay, and while notarizing, somebody had put their ballot in, and somehow humidity sealed the envelope, and we had to open the envelope to notarize it and then reseal it. And I told him, just write a note that humidity on there. And she asked the election board secretary, what are you going to do with ballots like that? He said, oh, that's no problem. We have that happen. That was the answer. It was obvious that a ballot had been opened and resealed in a public meeting. He says, no problem. We have that happen. Okay. That's an invalid ballot. If that ballot shows to appear to be unsealed and resealed, then that's, and that person notarizing should know that too, saying, wait a second, you're going to have to go get another ballot. You can't, I cannot notarize your ballot. I mean, that's you're right.
Can I share? We actually had a similar situation. My husband and I always request our absentee ballots, or I do, and sometimes he does, and we weren't sure we were going to be in town for something. So we requested his, and oh my goodness, his had the same problem. It did come in the mailbox. It was damp humidity, but he hadn't filled anything out. And the contents of that absentee ballot were, you couldn't use it. We would have had to use a letter opener or something and then put tape on it. But you can't do that. That's a legal binding document, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so I told Terry, if we can't get down to XYZ, early in person to vote, I said, what are you going to do? You're going to have to call the election board or go down there and ask them to print you a new one. Take the other one in and physically show them. He was able to go early in person and vote in this other election, but it's problematic, and it's not okay for a legal binding document for them just to hand wash things. I don't want myself, if I chose to return an absentee ballot, I'm sorry, I'm very frustrated by that. It's just like for me, watching and hearing and seeing and getting evidence of the last 3 years of information and procedures there is a case to be made here that there needs to be an audit of what's going on. And ultimately, what a lot of people don't know is, sure, the county election board secretaries, really their main authority is to maintain their own voter roll and to run their elections. But the reality is every bit of guidance comes from the state election board, whether it's in violation of law or not. And we had it, just to give an example, we had our county election board secretary in Comanche County that testified that she didn't know what an irregularity was because the state election board has never informed her. She has been in that position since 2015. The state election board secretary has held his position, I believe it's since 2009. What is going on?
The same thing when I went to the county and I asked for a petition for irregularities. They about fell over, and they told me nobody has ever requested that before. They were good people. I didn't have a problem with them. They didn't try to pull any games, but they just were not trained to what the state statutes say they're supposed to do. They were trained to do and react to what that leadership wanted them to do, so they get the end result they want.
Well, it seems like there is been a history of circumventing the law and doing whatever you want. That's not management. And it seems to me if you don't know how to manage and you don't know how to read law and make sure you're creating policies and procedures and not violating the law, that individual individuals should not be in those positions at all.
But Amber,
I'm thinking about, we have the military background, and I'm thinking about people that we know that have been fired. They've been busting down in rank, or they've been told to get out, or they've been put in prison because they did things that violated the law because they went outside of the rules of engagement. What is going on?
Well, here's just the election's over with. Lisa Standridge won. But here's a question I have is, are we electing legislators that don't know how to read the law and don't know how to write law? Is that where we're at? Is that the bigger problem?
Yes. Yes.
We had that in this very case where this was going on, and it appears to be that it's been going on for some time. It's a pattern of what's been going on, and that's where checks and balances of what is the law, how are we addressing it, an audit of it would resolve it, I think, real quickly. But it's transparency that is what's out there. I believe the way the law currently is, any candidate after a race has the authority to go to, whether it's a state or county election board, and say, I want a petition for irregularities. And I do not believe that they have the ability to say, well, prove you got just cause. I do not believe the law gives them that autonomy, nor does it give them autonomy to say, well, we'll only let you look at the ones you know. You can go on a fishing expedition if you so desire. And I mean, I'll back up again. Almost every candidate that lost last night is more worried about how they're going to pay the overage of their campaign personally, because when you lose a campaign, all your donors go south. I remember years ago when the good guys of the GOP taking it over lost a big race, and he called me up the next day, and he was short $120,000, and there was nobody to help pay. And so if you find yourself in that, you're not worried about this over here, and nor can you afford to do what I have done. I have spent more on this legal side than some of these House reps have raised for their campaign. They have made it so difficult for for a candidate and the voting people to have trust in the election process.
Yeah. Well, I think we've seen that in multiple races where, Amber, you have identified anomalies, even like in my race itself. But there's no way a little guy like me, even running for school board, can go spend that kind of money to open up that can of worms. But Amber, where does it really go back to, like the state secretary, the board secretary, and all the administrative rules and their policy and his policies? I mean, is that where it really goes back to, or how
it really does? I mean, it's a. Oh, I'm having bad feedback. Is it all set out on your end?
Yeah, it's a little feedback.
I'm so sorry. I've been trying to fix it and it's not. So it's really a combination of all of them. Whether it's bad law, whether it's good law and they're not being followed, and they're circumventing through the administrative rules process, or there are policies and procedures put in place that violate all of the above.
Yeah.
And does it go back to the state election board secretary? At this point, it does. Because previous, past, and current legislators gave full authority, for the most part, to the state election board secretary. And that's problematic.
I mean, can we kind of point the finger towards the, I wouldn't say miseducation or undereducation of these county secretaries? I mean, they're probably not really to blame, because they're probably not even properly educated into the process.
You're 100% right. From what I've discovered, the ones that I know, they want to do it right, and they're and they get beat up. I mean, the kind of phone calls they get from voters upset, I mean, across the board, they get beat up, and they are only carrying the water the way they are instructed to do it by and large. And the failure comes up at 2300 North Lincoln Boulevard. So.
Yeah. Well, I know, Robert, you have to be on another call here at 10:30. But, I think what it comes down to is, you were right. I can't remember the verbiage you used, but it went to the fact that what's happening on a larger scale is actually happening right here in Oklahoma with the bureaucracy and, the other term that many people know, the deep state. And in essence, we have a similar thing happening here in Oklahoma. People have to wake up. Because I know, as an outsider that has lived all over the country and even outside the United States, Oklahoma, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You have to start moving. You have to be willing to stand up and back great candidates, be willing to go and lobby legislators. Stop allowing people that have personal interests, financial gain, to lobby our legislators. Move them out of the way and be the ones to be the citizen lobbyists to get your state moving in the right direction.
You bet. I'm on board with you on that. But let's get legislators that have the capacity to comprehend law and to write good law, but yet have a history of integrity, of complying with the law themselves. When we start getting people elected in there, and we put them in a position where many of these people go into it, and they have good intentions. Their capacity are little of being able to do things. They have a good stage presence. They can talk the pants off of somebody, to get the vote. But at the end of the day, they are swayed once they get in. I mean, I've got pictures of a lobbyist who gave me a check. Good guy. He's a good guy. And I think he and I, if I was elected, we'd end up working on some of the same stuff. But I took a picture of me shredding his check and sent it to him and saying, "You're a great guy, but there is no way I am going to let anybody think that I voted on a farm bill because you gave me money." One of the largest pharmacy company in the United States. They have 33 million clients, sent me a check, registered, wanted to endorse me, and I got a picture of them in a void through their check. I was not about to be owned by somebody. I represented Senate District 15, and we were going to get it right. And we've got to have leaders that got enough courage to stand up and fight that way, and not just grab the mic and tell the story, but have actions in their life that prove they live the story. And when we watch these people grab the mic, they make all these promises, but we're not watching them live the story. We got to.
Yep. Yeah, and people get involved in it, running for positions and being brave and bold enough, and you just put a team you together. And I some people win with less money than others, and I really would like people to start changing the mindset that people running for these positions have a college degree, that they have to have some important position that they've held. I know I'm highly intelligent. I can see things when other people can't see them. I have no college degree. I have 60 college credits that I have absolutely learned nothing. Read a wonderful book. Learned one little thing about one company I thought was amazing, right? But I have learned more through doing and taking the experiences that I have had throughout my life, whether it be from educational, disabilities, military, adoption, you name it. I can speak on many subjects because I am aware and I am engaged. You do not need a degree or some little, like big company backing you to be effective. Just start moving.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Well, and I want to just reiterate, Robert, a major red flag to me in this whole thing is you filed a petition for irregularity. You have to, you can't, you're saying you go in there, you can't fish, but also it goes into a non-public court, literally off the record. I mean, that is a major, major red flag for me. It's just mind-boggling that when you're dealing with a public race for the public, with public dollars, with public issues, probably breaking the law, how it's all completely off the record. I mean, that is just insane.
Yeah, and you don't even get a case number.
Yeah,
it's a cause to where they cannot find it. Yeah,
and it's only escalated up to the Supreme Court because you had to.
He wouldn't rule on it. He refused to rule. He refused to keep. That day Amber sat in court, my attorney got everybody in the room to agree publicly, and it's recorded by the court reporter. On the following week, after they certified the election, they reached out and talked to the judge, and they sent a different deal to the judge who signed off on it. And we then went back to court, and they said, oh, no, we never agreed to any of that. But yet, here we have the court documents where they all say, yes, we agree, Your Honor. And it's even bizarre that on that last day that in court, they publicly said, okay, the election board attorney publicly said that we do not deny that there were crimes that have been committed. We just say that it doesn't need to be in this court. Well, there's no other court. There's no other opportunity based on their own policies and the law. And so they are just trying to bury this, keep it under, get through the election. I mean, if you read that whole big document that went to the Supreme Court, I believe there's a good trail of text messages and emails back and forth of the trail of the dog and pony show that is in there to try to suppress this information, keep it from getting out.
Wow. Well, we'll link to that Supreme Court case so people can find that and go through those documents. And I mean, it's just mind blowing. But I can't thank you enough, Robert. I mean, to first of all to have the perseverance to keep going and to keep pushing and have the integrity to just to just do it the right way and want to just solve the problem for everybody here. I mean, just kudos to you. I mean, that is one tough, heartbreaking deal. And also that you didn't run a negative campaign in any way. And you also didn't bring all this up prior to this, to yesterday.
You bet. I'm more concerned about fixing it nationally. My hope and prayer was that Trump won. He did. We got that. Matter of fact, I went to a watch party last night. I've got this beautiful painting of the rendition of him when he was shot, and I provided everybody with orange vest, and I didn't get it done in time. We were going to have the vest printed on there saying Trump trash. But we had our Trump trash pictures of about 50 people together, and listening to our president. Okay, he was wrongfully dealt with. He was cheated plainly, and they are using the exact same tactics that's going on in our state. And if we don't make a call to arms, we're going to have the same problem on our national elections as well. Right now, we're only fighting it red on red. Okay, that's bad. But let me tell you something. The day we start losing it the other way, it's going to be terrible. Okay, we've got to have a call to actions to fix it.
And part of that fixing of that action is strong leadership within the Republican Party in Oklahoma. And I'm going to call it out right now. The nonsense that is going on within the GOP of Oklahoma has got to stop on all sides, because we are not going to retain the redness of this state and the conservative values if you all don't knock it off.
Amen. Yep. I agree with you on that.
Right there.
Drop
guys, I've got to get out of here.
All right. Thanks, Robert.
Thanks for having me on. I love visiting with you.
That was a great conversation.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Amber. Well, just another, you've been on this trail for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that's just another validation for you about how there are issues here. This isn't like, hey, we have paper ballots, we have a simple Scantron machine, there's no issues. I mean, there are issues here in this state.
There are. And, I've been very careful not to call out people, but I'm done. I am so tired of people really subverting the voices of the people of Oklahoma. An individual or individuals, and we have to have a change. And I am calling on, I don't know who does it, but there needs to be investigation of the state election board, the process, policies, procedures, the administrative rules, the laws, what's working, what's not working. Something has to be done. And I want to know, like we talked before, I want to know how the $5 million 1 year was spent. I want to know how the almost $3 million several years were spent when the counties are paying for some of these elections themselves. So I want to know what's going on, because the state election board's getting more than that. That $5 million that 1 year was just for maintaining our infrastructure for voter rolls and voters. That wasn't all the other stuff. There was higher, millions more dollars. I want to know if there's fraud, waste, and abuse.
We know there is. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yep.
I just can't get beside the fact that, well, first of all, that petition for irregularities. I mean, I'd never even heard of that. Have you heard of that?
So I had heard about it, but understood it better when Richard Tortorello had filed his, and there was a lot learned out of that process, that anything and everything that you want to look at, have addressed, it is, you have to have it submitted on Friday. So the election's Tuesday. Before they certify it on Friday, you have to have everything submitted that you want to look at the exact same time. It doesn't matter if they're not going to start recounting till Monday or Tuesday of next week, and you find something over the weekend, you can't add it. Why can't you add it?
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. If you know, that's what I wanted Robert to just, for future candidates, to tell that exact process from you have election, then you have 3 days, and then you have so much time after the 3 days to actually find something or come up with something. Then it goes into this other court. You know, I didn't get clear on that process.
Yeah, well, I mean, you basically said it. I mean,
Okay.
that's really how it breaks down. I did want to just address here, you know, the 291 anomalies that you were talking about.
Yeah. I wanted
Okay,
to go
so
back
just
to
off the top of my head, remembering some things that I was looking at with people briefly, I believe that maybe the majority of that is missing date of birth and missing registration dates in their voter record, their voter registration in the election data warehouse. And I don't have the law off the top of my head, but I have spoken about it before on our previous, when I've been on. And it's a violation of the law. The people that are missing dates of birth and registration dates, they're not valid electors in the state of Oklahoma. The county election board secretaries need to go and audit their own voter rolls, and they need to clean it up and clean it up fast, because the state election board is not going to be there to help you, because they are not looking out for you. They're looking out for some self-interest that they have going on. The only thing that I have seen that they've had their hands in, it appears, is that they are cleaning up the voter rolls. But in the process of that, what they're doing is they're not doing it to the full extent of the law. They've started another process that they chose to circumvent and not utilize to the full extent for 7 years.
Yeah.
County election board secretaries have to take control back, get in and learn and realize they have some authority and do better. And I'm not going to say the person, but I have seen one county election board secretary. Her voter rolls are not 100%. It's not my county, but she does a phenomenal job at least being transparent on social media and giving the public a bird's eye view at election time. Every county needs to do that.
You know, I'm laughing, Amber, but just think about this. Okay, you're a computer person. I'm a computer person. You have your database sitting there. You just go over to your database and you click sort by date of birth. Uh-oh, we've got 150 records here that don't have a date of birth. Sort by registration date. Uh-oh, we have 500 records that don't have a registration. I mean, are you kidding me? How hard?
It's absurd. It's absurd. So the question is do all the county election board secretaries, right? I'm not saying anyone's bad. I'm just saying, do they even know how to do it? I think it's possible. And from what things that I'm seeing is that first, we may not have self-starters. They are go along to get along, and more of the sheeple mind. And I'm not trying to say that bad, but you have to have people in those positions that are willing to stand up and really take that job on to the point where they can hit back appropriately to the state election board and require and hold their feet to the fire to ensure they're getting the appropriate training, because the state election board is obviously not doing it. I mean, it's not hard to figure out how to sort something. Come on.
Well, and they're setting a precedent with like a Jenni White, with a Cheryl Williams, to where you're not going to ask questions about how we do things. So, I mean, it's probably a tough job. I mean, like Robert said, a lot of these guys probably just get absolutely beat up, you know, in and out from the public, from you know, the state secretary, and one way or another. It's probably a pretty tough job to actually, you know, want to go out there and do the right thing in. So, you know, it's easy to just be complacent and just, you know, go with however it goes.
Well, it is. And Michael, like, I get it. I mean, I have my moments of insecurities when I'm thinking I'm not even running for anything, right? Yeah. And I'm like, I'm trying to be brave and bold and speaking and stuff. And I do a fairly good job, but I'll have moments, even if I'm going to write something to someone or a social media post, right? I'm like, I'll retract it and like have to get over myself and be like, okay, I have to be brave and bold this moment. I'm not being nasty. It's that you need truth tellers to be brave enough to stand up and just tell the people what the truth is, because there are other people that believe the same way you do. They just don't have the guts or the bravery to talk about it or to stand up. And I am so thankful that Robert filed this. I am so thankful for our district attorney in Comanche County and the judge in the Comanche County. Like, the more we do this, it's practicing, you guys. The more we practice, hitting back and learning how to do the process, we find out how we need to change things and fix things. We have to come together. We have got to stop the infighting and hatred against one another.
Yeah.
Why is it happening? What's going on?
Agree 100%. Well, I know my time is about. I got stuff to do today, and
Me
I know
too.
you do too. And I mean, that was fantastic having Robert on and talking to him. And like you said, just what happened to him is, I mean, that just should be a textbook. Here is something wrong with the system. Here's an example textbook. Here's anomalies in the voter rolls. Here's illegal witnessing of absentee ballots. Here's illegal notarizing absentee ballots. I mean, how much clear cut can you get?
Yeah, and where are the missing ballots that aren't accounted for, including the one physical one that was missing the day I was in court observing?
Yeah.
Where'd it go?
Wow. Well, I'm thankful and grateful that you were part of that process, and that he came forward, and also that he had the pocketbook to be able to go forward, because 99% of people, they're not going to be able to afford, and he's only in it at 50,000 now. It's probably going to go up from there.
So how is that part of the free and fair election process?
Yeah. Here's the deal. If you file that petition of irregularities, if you even find anything, that should just automatically be investigated by the state itself, by whoever. I mean, if you find any kind of irregularity, that shouldn't be on your dime. That should just get kicked right up to whatever agency it's going to be, or whoever it's going to be, whether it's, I don't know if it'd be the DA or whoever, I don't know, but that's who should immediately come in if you can show anything, because they're giving you such a short amount of time as it is. But if you can even come up with something, that shouldn't be on your dime to go forward with that.
Yep, I absolutely agree. Thank you so much. It was a great conversation.
Yeah.
The more we talk about these things, the more we learn, and people get involved.
Yeah.
Get involved.
Well, and I think, the times are changing. The grassroots is winning. Things are turning around. People are becoming more aware. We've talked about it multiple times. Just the evidence of the popular vote itself for Trump. I mean, if that doesn't tell you something. I mean, I was telling people all week, I guarantee you Trump's going to win the popular vote. They're like, no way, he'll win the electoral college, but he's not going to win he's going to win the popular vote, because people are just fed up.
We're done. That was just epic. And if people don't understand what's been really going on, I saw this in Oklahoma itself a couple years ago, and it just dawned on me. If people don't know, it's one way to look at this is it's the old establishment, the old guard of the Republican Party even, that have been having a hard time relinquishing their control of everything. Yep. And it is the Gen X time to take back our country. Y'all messed it up. You were asleep on the watch. You didn't teach us what we were supposed to be taught. So we're going to clean it up for you. And you know what? We're going to bring our children along because they've woken up too.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And, like Stephanie says, we can't sit down for 2026. I mean, we need to go in now while it's hot, the iron's hot. We need to strike. We need to fix all these issues, while we can. I just hope, we just don't get snowed over by politics, and we can actually go in, get some election integrity, even in a state like Oklahoma, where it doesn't, where there's no integrity issues in Oklahoma. But,
well, yeah, it's policies and procedures and people's ego and their intention. Yeah, the integrity. Where is it?
Yeah. Well, I'm ready for, massive change. And I just hope, we get that, because I'm in touch with a lot of younger people, with my kids and my younger brothers. And I mean, they're all the same. I mean, they all think the same way. They all think, things have gotten so crazy, they don't know about their futures. I mean, it's really a breath of fresh air that the pendulum is swinging back in the other direction now.
It is. It absolutely is. And I am so thankful our children, 27, 23, 21, they get it. And we didn't talk politics all the time growing up. We just talked about world events that were happening and lived that military lifestyle. And so they would see things firsthand. They came to their own conclusions.
Yeah.
You know, they all think the way that we do, common sense. You know, we're not, everything's not hopeless. We're going to be able to get this right, but you can't, as Senator Hamilton always says, you can't rest on your laurels.
That's right. When I still believe, you know, this is the greatest country in the world, even though it's been completely, you know, turned upside down as best they can by the globalists, by these crazy liberals, by all these maniacs. That doesn't mean it's over. We can turn everything right back around and rebuild the family unit, rebuild the Christian moral value system of this country that, you know, made us the best place in the world, you know, gave us our liberty and freedom, you know, because we were, you know, gifted by God.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, love one another and treat them as you would treat, you know, you'd want to be treated. You know, do unto others, right, as you would have them do unto you. And that's where we've lost our way.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, Amber, is great having you on. Great having Robert on. We miss Jenny. She's getting ready to talk about right now to these homeschoolers out there in Bixby. So good luck to Jenny also. Safe trip back home. And just thank everybody for being with us and supporting us. And we'll make some really good clips out of this session with Robert, and we'll share those. And hopefully, I'd really like to see the hammer come down on Robert's case.
I would too. We need to make movement, and this is a great opportunity for that to happen.
Yep. Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, again, and we'll see you. I don't know who we have for Friday, but we'll see you Friday.
Bye. Thank you.